Well, welcome to my kitchen. This may seem rather odd, but I'm going to attempt to cook something that I like. Unfortunately, I don't usually use recipes. This is based on a recipe, so hopefully it'll be good. Well, I know it'll be good, but hopefully you'll learn something from it. How's that? I'm going to start just with some onions, thanks to my neighbor Larry for growing these. They started to sprout, so he brought them down so I could help him use them up. I have my own little way of getting rid of the scraps. I should put it in the compost heap, but I don't have a big enough bunch that I use that it wouldn't draw rodents out here in the country, so I just throw them in the trash. As I struggle. I'm going to rinse them just to get the rest of the skins off. Normally I don't. This also has a little green core I'm going to take care of. When I chop an onion, I kind of want this fine, I think. I don't particularly want chunks of onion in a broccoli soup. So store-bought onions are a little easier because they're the right size and don't have to cut to and have a chance of tears. But fresh onions seem to be a little more spicy. Fresh grown, I should say. And the glasses help keep the stuff away from your eyeballs too, so that's good. So I'm going to saute these onions in a couple tablespoons of butter, unsalted butter. The reason to use unsalted butter is because it won't burn in the pan. Salted butter tends to burn. Why? I think because the salt pulls out the milk solids, separates them, and they burn quicker. Big fan of fat and grease, but in a soup, I suppose it's important. I'm not sure what happened to my audio here, but we'll do the best we can to mimic what was going on. I'm melting the butter, getting ready to saute the onions, and I think I used about 2.5 tablespoons of butter there, and I want to saute them until they're not yellow or brown by any means, but completely soft and tender, so it doesn't add too big a chunks or anything to the soup. So I'm turning it down, make sure it's not going to burn while I'm over here, and I'm going to clean my carrots and prep them for the soup. The only reason for the carrots really is for some color. The yellow of the soup is pretty. The yellow of the soup is nice, but the little orange and green from the broccoli kind of just make it a little more appetizing. I'm cutting these all in a similar thickness so they'll cook at the same time. Even though they're bigger and smaller around, the thickness will allow them to cook evenly. I don't want them to just disappear into the soup, although carrots tend to be somewhat firm unless they're just really cooked to death. I must be having some great wise information coming out of my mouth because I see it moving up there on the screen, but for the life of me, I couldn't tell you. Get rid of my trash. Check the onions, make sure that they're not burning or browning in any way. Turn that down a little bit and get a scraper. Now I'm just stating the obvious, aren't I? Really, I could stay quiet and you'd get the gist of most of this whole video. I've already peeled the garlic. Now I'm just making it small enough to fit into my garlic press easily. Those are nice big fat garlic cloves. And this is where I make a horrible mistake, as I use the sharp side of my knife. I don't know what possessed me, but I did. I got smart the second time somehow and used the back side. I'm going to put about 4 tablespoons of butter into the other pot and melt it while the onions continue to saute. I have not added the garlic yet because I don't want it to burn. It's still there on the cutting board with the carrots. And grab some flour. And I'm going to partition 4 tablespoons of flour. When you're making a roux, it's always equal amounts of butter to equal amounts of flour. Now I've got the butter melted and I've stirred the flour in there yet. I can't tell. Nope. I'm getting ready to add the flour now. Turn the heat down so it doesn't burn. I add it all at once and stir it in. Now it has to cook about 3 minutes so you get rid of all that flour flavor. And this is a soup base that I use instead of chicken broth. It's just much handier to keep around than boxes of chicken broth. And I like the taste, so it's really not a problem. Now, most people use heavy cream in their soups like this, but it's so fatty and thick that I tend to do my own thing as usual, which you'll see here in a minute. After that base gets stirred into that and the cooking time gets rid of the flour taste, I'm going to put the garlic in the onions. Turn down the heat on the onions, if not off. Now you can see what the roux is supposed to look like. And I just add all the liquid at once. And that looks like it'll be 2 cups of water. Stir that in. And I have not added any salt or pepper to this whole recipe yet. Now I'm going to add 2 cups of milk. That will give the nice creaminess to the sauce or the soup. And again, let it thicken. Here's my onions and garlic. Put in the carrots, and I'm going to let them slowly cook while I cut up the broccoli. Frozen broccoli is actually cheaper than a fresh broccoli, believe it or not. It's $2.69 a pound for fresh broccoli, and I think this whole bag was $1.29. So I won't bore you with watching all of it, I hope, as I cut up the chunky pieces. Good. Now I've got the cheese, which I'm using a sharp cheddar. You could grate it. It's easier, it melts faster, but it's just another dish or pan I have to wash, so I just chop it. About now is where I probably would want to eat a piece. Oh, I had some Romano cheese in the fridge, and again, now it is salty. I am assuming it is from salt, but I just have a lot of it. I have half a wheel, and so the nice salty, smoky flavor from that is very good. Continue cutting up more broccoli out of the bag. I did end up using the entire bag, 1 pound. Give the old soup a stir. It should be thickening nicely. Add the carrots, onions, garlic that have been sauteing, simmering. Let that cook for a few minutes. I'm just putting some of that back in the bag so I can carry it to the stove easier. Otherwise, I would be dropping it all over the floor. I just try to make it as easy on myself as I can. I'm going to add lots of fresh ground pepper. Probably almost a teaspoon there, it looks like. And I'm going to add some cayenne pepper, of all things, and dried mustard. And the only reason I'm using that is so I don't do too much, because if I tried to sprinkle it, I'd be in trouble. That looks like about a half a teaspoon heaping, so 3/4 of a teaspoon maybe. And the cayenne pepper, it's one of those, surprisingly, don't leave it out. You will not taste any spice. I don't anyway. And you want about that, half teaspoon maybe. And I'm going to add my broccoli florets. I like the stem and all. I don't, even if I have fresh broccoli, I shave the outside and use the whole stem and everything. And that's frozen, so I don't have to be too gentle with it yet. This is kind of get an idea what it looks like. See how thick that soup is? Even though it has no cream in it, and it's half water. So the cheese goes in after the broccoli's completely melted or thawed, and then it's cooking a little bit now. And I just sprinkle the big chunks of cheese in. I need the cooking time on the broccoli and the carrots to make sure that they're soft enough without being too mushy. So I kind of let the cheese melt while the broccoli and the carrots continue to cook. This is what it looks like in the pan. So it appears my camera shut off. So the cheese is now all melted. I tasted it for salt. It has more than enough. And I love salt. The cayenne pepper and the mustard makes it feel salty. So that's kind of a good thing for low sodium people. There's no salt in this unless the cheese has salt. So keep that in mind. Now I need the crusty bread in the oven and dinner is served. Enjoy.